You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Roisin Nichleirigh.
And me, Paul Brophy. Roisin, this evening, as part of our European election special, we're delighted to be joined by Patrick Murphy, who is the Aontu candidate for Ireland South. Patrick is also CEO of the South and West Fisheries Fisheries Producers organisation, and Patrick has been with us before talking about all things fishing and agriculture. So, Patrick, you're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup.
It's great to be talking with you again, Paul, and to you, Roisin. It's a pleasure. I really enjoyed our chats, to be honest with you. So I'll have a smile from ear to ear as we go through this. Unless you ask me a question that annoys me about remembering what our politicians have done to us. So, and looking forward to this interview.
Well, you're cracking up a storm, pardon the pun, being a fisherman, you're cracking up a storm on Twitter.
Yeah, look, it's a very simple story. This young lad, he's chairman of Ogra, Aontu, young lad, 19 years of age, John Bryan, one of the most intelligent, switched-on young fellas I've met in a long time. And look, I've met a lot because we used to have 8 to 10 young fellas and girls working with us during the summers when we worked in the mussels. It was a lot was hand work, so we had them all summer, and you get to meet all the different age groups. They'd come with you for a few years, so you get a feel of the young people. And I haven't had that in a while, but this young fella really impressed me. He asked some really poignant questions in the interview. I think people are getting to understand, it was just in the car driving around. It wasn't planned. We were going from one place to another canvassing. And I think it's hit people. This is really common sense stuff and really easy stuff to understand. And I'm going to continue with that if I may. And I'm just going to say this. So I like to try and do something which is to get you to look through other people's eyes, right? So I'm going to ask you this, and we're going to look through the eyes of a fisherman. So you're in business all your life. It's been passed down from generation to generation. You've done nothing wrong. You know you're going to be away from your family and your home for weeks and months on end throughout the year. When you come home, you're going to be servicing your boat. It's really a job that you spend most of your time living on your boat. Your boat becomes like a family member to you, everything, right? And then you find out that a politician or politicians and a government behind your back gave away 25% of your right to make your living. And then to apologize, they didn't. They just said, there was other things to consider bar you. And there was bigger issues at play for the deal that we did in Europe. But what we'll do is we'll pay you off. We'll get rid of you. We'll destroy you and your traditions. And the worst thing is that the politicians that did that are now knocking on these people's doors and telling them, we did a good job for you in Europe. Please vote for us. Now, I don't know about anybody else that's watching this tonight, but I want you to think and put yourself in the position of that fisherman. Whatever job you have or business you have or whatever you're doing to support your families, that if that politician did the same thing to you and he knocked on your door a few months later to ask you for a vote to say that he represented you well in Europe, what would your answer be to that person?
God, you probably set the dog on him.
Well, I don't think, Paul, no, if you had a dog, you'd be sending something after him anyway. But no, but this is reality, right? So when people ask me, well, why did you run for politics? Because those same people that are knocking on the doors and the other political parties, I've been in this job for 8 years, and I've been telling them what was going to happen. And I can prove that what I said to them was going to happen did happen. Why? Because anybody that's seen us on RTE and all the media outlets, when we brought our boats to Cork, up the River Lee for a whole day, we had our banners, we had our posters, and we had the testimony of so many people. One woman who lost her husband and her sons to fishing. She lost them all. And she came up and she shook my hand and she said, you know what, Patrick? I think my sons and my husband will be proud of you. And yet, after that day, those politicians that stood there did what they did. They scrapped another 40 families' livelihoods. And that 40 families represent 1/3 of the fishing fleet that we have left. So they got rid of 40 and we've 120 left. So in my mathematics, that's a third of what's left now, you know? And how can anybody, lads, have the cheek to knock on your door, or anybody representing them, or any political party, or any opposition party? Because it wasn't just the good parties in government now, mind you. It was all the MEPs that went out there, voted for this, allowed this to happen. Look, we're talking about the mothers and babies scandals. We're talking about the cervical cancer scandals. We're talking about a young girl that was allowed to die inside in a hospital from lack of treatment and lack of resources being given to our hospitals. And these same politicians who ruined our country and brought in the IMF, who brought in vulture funds into our country and took the houses away from our people and did what the Brits did and put them out in the streets. This is the government. These are the politicians that are once again knocking on our doors and asking you to vote for them. So what I'm saying this time, please don't. I'm being honest with people. Don't vote for them. Don't, because if you vote for these people, nothing will change. Things will get worse and they will annihilate our country. And I've said this, so I was right 5 years ago about what would happen to our fishing. And unfortunately, from what I see in Brussels and what is happening is a carbon copy to what's happening to our farming communities. They are slowly but surely eroding our way of life in our rural communities. They are making it so impossible for people to earn a living in small farms with regulations and expecting Ireland to be Atlas to hold up the world when it comes to the climate change policies of the world. And to be honest with you, genuinely, we are a small player. We are minuscule. If we stop producing all our carbon and became carbon neutral in the morning, it wouldn't make a jot of a difference to the global carbon emissions. Let's be honest.
No.
But our so-called virtual signalling politicians believe it's okay to destroy the Irish people. And the next bit I'm going to move on with while it's in my head. I met a lad from the army yesterday in Tralee, and he told me, no, sorry, Killarney. And he told me, you can't mention me. Certainly don't mention my name. The information I give you will be vague. But he said, if you ask me the questions, if I don't deny them, you'll know they're true. Imagine to talk to a lad like that. Imagine that this is the only way that he felt comfortable to allow to see, did I know what was going on inside in our services? And he wouldn't confirm or deny, but by not denying them, then that was his way of confirming them. That is the Ireland that we're living in today. And we have a Taoiseach and a Taoiseach that stand up and say that our neutrality is up for grabs, that we should be looking to spend more on our weapons and our equipment when we can't even pay the people that will be putting themselves on the front line, once again, risking their lives, a proper, decent wage for doing it. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I haven't told on the media yet. So another officer told me this, but again, he can't speak. They're worse than the guards. They can't speak out for themselves. And this will shock the listeners, but please understand that this is true. When a soldier goes out on a tour of duty out to the likes of Lebanon or other places of conflict as peacekeepers, they get a payment. They did get a payment from the United Nations called danger money, right? It might be a more technical name than that, but basically that's it. So they get danger money so that if they get injured or shot or killed, that they're paid for that risk. Do you know what our beautiful government did? They took that money from the United Nations and stopped it from being a direct payment so they could tax it. Think of that now. How bloody low can you go? So these guys were getting a direct payment for risking their lives, and our government looked for a cut out of that payment. No.
My son is just back from South Lebanon a couple of weeks ago. So that's really touched me.
Yeah. So what they did, Roisin, is they didn't reverse that and they said we won't tax it, and they called that a pay rise. This is the crack that's going on in our services. We are losing men and women who are there to defend us if needed. Please God, it'll never happen because they're ill-equipped. They don't have the right equipment. This is like watching the films ago where you've seen profiteering inside, giving shoddy equipment and companies making a fortune out of that, not giving the right gear to the lads and freezing on the front line and all this crack. Have we learned nothing as a people? And it's not them. And I don't even blame the profiteers. I blame our government. I blame the people that are meant to be looking out, who are our Minister for Defence. I blame the civil servants that are advising him. I blame the people paying the money. I blame the people writing the contracts. I blame the silence that these people are forced to endure, that they cannot speak out, that they are not allowed to defend themselves. They can defend the country, but they can't defend themselves. We have to do something with Ireland of 2024. And here's the thing. People say, well, we're helpless. You're not helpless this time. You can show what you think of these things by going out on June the 7th and don't vote for the established parties. Don't vote for the big opposition parties who show themselves to be no different than the ones in government. They're no different between them. Nothing. The referendums on taking women out of our constitution, the referendums on taking the state away from the responsibility to look after the most vulnerable in our society. That's what these were about. And to turn everything upside down, to destroy our country and our heritage and our rights. These people joined together to do that. And for Mary Lou MacDonald to be standing outside Dublin Castle before the results and to say, if the people have got it wrong, if they have voted this down, we give our word that we will revisit this when we come back into government. The last time a government did that was the Lisbon Treaty. By God, how Sinn Féin has changed since then. And this is why we need to send a message. The people of Ireland have an opportunity on June the 7th to shake them again like they did. They didn't listen on the referendums. They didn't listen. But this is every man and woman's chance over the age of 18 to send a clear message to these people that no, and we're going to change things. And if you don't change your ways and come around to what the people of Ireland need, you're not going to be elected. We'll park you, we'll replace you, we'll get a new management team. And it can't be any worse, lads, than the one that are there. Like, look at every aspect of our society. From migration, immigration, we can't even get lads to come into the country through an atypical scheme, and we're begging it from our government to bring workers into the country to go into our industry. I know I go on a bit, but I have to tell you this stuff from the campaign. If you look up online, you will see that I visited an area with Sarah Beasley, the Aontu candidate, mayoral candidate for Limerick, first one in the country. Now, I'm going to say what I believe, and I really do want the two of you to comment because I know you're sensible people, right? So in an area of Limerick, when two children were petrol bombed inside in a car, Mary McAleese, sorry, excuse me, right. Mary McAleese, our president, right, said, we're not having this in our country. We're going to do something about this. And she reared up and she got the government to act. And what they did was they said, we're going to start a rejuvenization of that area in Limerick. So what did they do? They knocked down the houses, right? Now, I went and I visited that place and the views are spectacular. I shot a video over my shoulder looking at two more houses to be knocked. There were two families inside those houses. They want to get out of the area, fair enough. But our government think to solve social issues in that area, the way to do it is to run them out of it and knock the houses. Think about that for a second. You knock the houses down to run the people that you don't want in the area out. Perfectly good houses. Rather than tackling the issue of those people in the area. And here's the thing. The only way they get to knock down the houses is to give a free house to the people in the houses. So you upgrade the people causing the trouble into another house. Like, if that isn't the definition of stupidity and madness, I don't know what is. We're in a housing crisis. So rather than sorting it out and even move those people out that are in there, get them all out, wherever they want to go. Keep the houses.
Yeah, they're good,
These are
Knocking
perfectly
down
good
houses
houses.
while we've
perfectly
the
good
housing
houses.
crisis.
Why would you be
Perfectly
knocking
good.
them?
Yeah. And this is and there's two, and the council are doing this. And I'm there and I'm going, this is absolute madness. I was told not to use that word. Lunacy is what I'd say. This makes no sense. And I don't care if people criticize me for my use of language. If it's anything but, or if I don't understand it, or why somebody can explain to me that this is the right thing to do, I'm all ears, lads. And if you can put an argument up to me, anybody watching this video afterwards, 086 236 0001, p.murphy09@hotmail.com. Tell me, because I need to know. I really and truly need to know, because in my 53 years of living on this planet, and 2 of them probably not having much sense, to be honest, but I'd say a 3-year-old definitely would tell you, this ain't what right. This is madness. Knocking perfectly good houses, giving a key to another house in another area, right? And expecting that to solve social issues. Like, honest to goodness, like. So when people ask me, why Aontu? I said it's a common sense policy, politics that I'm looking to engage in. And I'd speak to the other people, and like yourselves, lads, we just come from honest society. I'm no shakes, I'd never claimed to be. I started working at 12, getting money, that is, in a small shop. I did my leaving cert. I went fishing with my father and our family business around the islands of Hare Island and the Hundred Carbon Isles. I did what I could for my industry at the time. I won't be saying that. Other people can look me up. And then I went into aquaculture because I felt it was more secure, and that it was less fighting with my neighbours. I had my plot and I could do what I wanted inside my own plot, within reason, though, of course, following the laws and the what was required of me to producing the mussels. There's a lot of other laws, but I didn't interfere with anybody else. I had my own plot, so I did it for that purpose, and my sons are doing it now. So I'm representing fishermen now in Europe for the last 8 years, and I've learned a hell of a lot. It is one of the most litigious and complex industries, most overregulated industry. And when people say to me, well, what do you know about it? Well, I was chosen by the Northwest Waters Advisory Council on the knowledge that I showed to them to be their chairman, to look into the control regulations of Europe, the amended ones. So it's not me saying it. It's the Northwest Waters Advisory Council saying it. I've been asked to take up other positions. I've been too busy. I've been the chairman of a couple of other focus groups, and I try and do as much as I can with my involvement in the local community here and raising kids and everything else. And this job is 24/7. I just don't have time to take on much more else. It's flat out. That's why to do this job in Brussels, I know it's, for me, it would be 7 days a week, genuinely 12, 14-hour days. I know this. I'm willing to do that 100%. I will meet with anybody. I won't be just limiting myself to the fishing industry. That'll be one string of a big bow, I can assure you. But I'm just hoping the people of Ireland South will see who I am before the election day, and know that I think I am fairly well qualified. I definitely am more qualified than any other candidate running anywhere in the country, Dublin, the Northwest or South, when it comes to the fishing industry. And if anybody thinks they are, I have no problem. Again, Patrick Murphy, 086 236 0001 or p.murphy09@hotmail.com. I'll sit down with any candidate and we can talk about fishing. And if you can blow me away, I'll step out of the race. If you can talk to me more about the fishing industry and the complexities of it than me, I will give my word on this interview. I will step down. There'll be a better person to represent me. But I guarantee you, nobody will take up that challenge.
And it's interesting, Patrick. I remember, I think when in a previous interview, I said when you started fishing first, I think you only need 3 documents to catch you when you're going out on your boat. Now you need several. So it just goes to show the level of regulations and bureaucracy that fishermen have to deal with, and what they're getting back in return is absolutely minuscule. And just another thing is when you mentioned about that, that in Limerick, that locking the houses and thinking that would solve the problems and stuff like that. You've been involved in community groups and stuff like that. It's the community and the services that they provide. They're the ones that are the best place to tackle those social issues. But the community, a lot of the community and voluntary sector, they were cut in 2008, and their workers working, they haven't seen a pay increase since then. And we all know inflation has gone through the roof in the last number of years. So they're effectively, the people that could, solve the problems more efficiently. They're not being supported either.
No, and I'll give you another one. Again, in one of the videos that people are looking at this, Paul, and this is scandalous, right? So when I get the opportunity of moving away from the fishing, I'm going to jump at it with both hands. So you have Article 39 and Article 38 for the employment in the HSE and in the private sector for people that needs most caring, right? So those in Article 39 and the public sector get a higher wage, right? And those underneath don't. So you have them coming into the industry, right? And it is an industry. You're looking after people. You have to be paid. So there is an industry behind it. The local community then step into the breach where our government and our public services fall down. We like the likes of co-action, right? And then they try and recruit people in to do the job, and they're told, yeah, you can come in, but you're getting less than the person doing the exact same job for you in the public sector. So then when an opening comes in from the public sector, so what do these people do? Of course they
go straight away. Absolutely.
Like, people have to live, right? And the cost of living that has gone through the roof is because of government policy. And that policy was supported by the opposition parties. It's called the Climate Action Bill. The Climate Action Bill, would you think, if you went with the sounding and the wording in it, is something to do with the climate and we have to act? No, it's not. It's a way of forcing carbon taxes on people, right? For them to pay more money. That's all it is. It's to reach out. It's the same as the bottle scheme, to charge you for the bottles and cans before you put it back in. People were recycling them. So, of course, they wanted a cut out of it, and they've proven it. And they don't even know what to do. There was no plan whatsoever in place to do with the extra money. And there's 243 million was the last time I heard one of the representatives for that company. He has to be paid. Extra there in the kitty. And what are you going to do with it? We haven't decided yet. You know what? If they put Dougal in front of you from Father Ted, you'd laugh. We haven't decided yet. Like, this is the country that we're being, and it's been ran by our politicians that are there far too long, in my view. And they were asked to leave. How do we know that? Because when they were asked to leave, they went against the Civil War politics. These people wouldn't even look at each other over a desk, shouting and roaring, and in debates, I was reared with it. And to keep their cozy arses inside in seats and ministerial seats, they went against everything. Now, if they formed a one party, that'd be different. But no. We'll come together with completely opposing views just to hold on to policies. And we'll bring in the Green Party, who was also there when the IMF destroyed the country and the austerity measures were brought in as a result afterwards. And you're just, I'm going, is it, we have such short memories? Do we have dementia united that we just seem to forget all the bad and all the things that our politicians have done to us just in the last 20 years? Is it, well, is it 20 or is it less? 2006, 2007. Yeah. So it's less, isn't it? It's less. 18 years from when they brought in, and they lied about it. So here they were lying that they had the IMF, and then the cameras showed them walking up the steps and going into the buildings. Oh, we have no problem with the banks are secure. And then the banks closed down. Oh, we will burn the bond holders. No, we won't. We can't do that either. 60 million euro won't like it. We will do this. No, we won't. And then a politician, a major, well-named politician, Pat Rabbit, to come on television and laugh at the people when he said, well, it's your own fault. Ye believe politicians making all the promises coming into an election every time. and knowing that they're not going to deliver on one of them. And you're just going, yeah, that's it.
Mm.
So I'm fed up with those politicians knocking on my door and their representatives knocking on my door telling me lies. I'm really fed up with it. So I got into the political ring. I put my name forward for both local and European. And somebody said to me, well, you can't have the 2 jobs. No, I don't have any job. And if I don't go to Europe, I still think I have something to give to my local community like I did when I was on the council. Why? This time in my life, my daughter, youngest, is 16. My eldest 2 lads are working their grand. My other girl is going through college. I think that at this time in my life, I can do it. And I can step out of the work that I'm doing for the fishermen. Yes, I'll be on a different income and whatever else. But, you know, now my... I'm laughing because I can guarantee if the lads that are watching this that I'm working for see this, they'll be going, you never told us this. You never told us you were definitely going to leave. But sure, look, I'll do what I can, where I can, but I can't do any of it unless somebody votes me in. But the other reason, lads, and this is true, and this is really serious now. I've had people coming into my office in bits, grown men, really now distressed, right? These men are some of the most skilled individuals on the planet. I mean that their education and what they can do cannot be matched by many. Really and truly, what they can do they are extraordinary people. They really are extraordinary people, and they're coming in and they're saying, we can't make a living. We've got the boats, we've got the gear, we've got everything that we need. And we don't have the legislation to allow us to bring in workers. We don't have the quotas to go out and catch it. We watch other boats come in and fill lorry after lorry after lorry after lorry of fish, and we're being decimated and being put out of business. And in my role as CEO of the Irish Southwest, arguing for them in Europe, I was told by the people in the enforcement agencies, Patrick, we know this. And I said, will you do something about it? Will you act accordingly? We can't. We have to follow the legislation. If you believe the legislation is wrong, and I said yes, and I pointed it out, and I showed the anomalies in the legislation, and a man from the back from the commission turned around and he says, well, we'll sort that out in the courtrooms. And then I said, that's not good enough. And then a woman from high up in the agency, one of the top in Europe, turned around. She said, Patrick, you know the reason, the only thing that you can do here. And I said, what is it? You have to get on to the lawmakers and get them to change the laws. So it wasn't a big leap for me to go, well, I've talked to the lawmakers. They've crucified us. They're not listening to me. You agree with me that the laws are not fit for purpose. So the only other way that I can change the laws is become a lawmaker. It's the only other way. So the Irish people have to understand, and I've said this, I like, this is Patrick Murphy, lads. There's no airs and graces, to be honest to God. I'm the same as everybody else. I have the hands to prove it. I get down and dirty with the best of them. There's nothing I would shy away from, provided I had the skill to do it. But I met one of my colleagues from the fishing industry who I grew up with and worked with. And I sat down with him and he was asking me all the same questions that you're asking me, but I expanded more. I went into the legislative complications and why things have to be changed and everything else. And he looked at me and he says, the only thing that hasn't changed with you is your looks. We can recognize you, but you're a completely different man from the man that was fishing from the pier here with me 20 years ago. He said, I cannot get over. It's like there's a different brain inside your head. He said, I never realized. And I looked at him and I went, Jesus, he's right. Because as you move and learn and move forward, it just becomes commonplace. You just use your knowledge and make the arguments and try and get it out there and make the changes. So you don't really look at yourself and go, oh, Jesus, yeah, he's right. So it was only when somebody else said that to me that I considered that, yeah, maybe he's right. And this is it. So he said, if you could get the message, if you could talk to the people like you talk to me, you will walk into Europe. He said, there is no question that you're qualified to get there.
100%. And Patrick, if, please God, the good people of Ireland South elect you to the European Parliament, what kind of, I'm sure you'd have like a 3 or 4, point action plan to say how you would, because you see it every day, you see the legislation and anomalies and stuff like that. There are probably things that can be done in a reasonable period of time that would help fishermen in the short term.
Yeah, absolutely. Like to go into it now would be another hour. So I'll just give you common sense ones, right?
Yeah.
So to know that I'm telling the truth, right? The UK got their fish back, right? And everybody says, well, what does that mean? Well, they got their fish back for a reason. When they left the European Union, the rights that were not being given to them, they took. So they said the fish are in our waters under United Nations law of the sea, migratory stocks, fish are here, they're ours. They're inside our 200-mile zone, they're our fish. Not only do they say it, Norway says it about mackerel, the Icelandic say it about mackerel, Greenland, and they say, listen, the fish are in our waters, they're ours. We have a greater claim to other countries coming into fish here. So we ask people, are the fish that the other countries coming to catch in our waters? Yes. 85% of the fish that are caught in Irish waters are caught by foreign vessels. We get 15%. So there's your argument. This doesn't have to be argued in a court of law. That's common sense. That's one part. The second part is that the European Union acknowledged that claim to those countries. So we're not asking them to tear up the common fishery policy, not at all. What we're asking them to do is, where applicable, apply the laws of the common fishery policy in conjunction with the United Nations laws of the sea. And it's very simple. Those countries don't catch all that they are afforded to catch. And under the common fishery policy, you can only carry forward from the previous year 10% of what you were given. So in other words, if you were given 1,000 tons of fish and you caught 900, then next year you can carry forward 100. So next year you again get 1,000, but you carry forward 100, you have 1,100, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's no problem. But if that country catches 700, they can only carry forward 100, and they lose the 200. So they get 7 plus 100 is 8, and the other 200 they can't do anything with it. It's gone. And we are starving for that quota in our waters. So under the United Nations laws of the sea, the country closest to the resource has the first opportunity to fish that resource. That's all I do. I'll go over and I'll quote the law, and I'll say, the fish you're not catching, we want it in our waters. Just our fish in our waters, nowhere else. That's a simple. So that's 2, right? Number 3. The common fishery policy is designed on 3 pillars under relative stability. Stability, it has to be relative, right? So it has to be continuous, okay? So one of those pillars is the coastal communities, right, that are dependent on the resource. Now, I told you 101 times, I'd say, no, you're probably tired of it, but on camera, we had 400 boats on the Irish Fishing Register in 2004, 20 years ago. We are now down to 120. Can anybody say that the common fishery policy has served the Irish communities well? Has it worked? Has it achieved its goals? Yes or no? No. The policy has what we would call failed. Simple as that.
And we are an island. We're an island.
Yeah.
And yet our fish to buy, we can't even afford to get the nutrients we need, because our fish, the cost of going and buying fish in our supermarket is unaffordable. You have to be very rich to buy it.
So what Roisin is just after identifying is another one. So we're entitled for our populations to be given access to affordable food and nutritious food, especially when it's ours. We cannot see as the same as what happened when the English invaded us and took over our country. And when the potato crop failed, they took every animal, all the wheat, all the other crops that could have sustained us and kept us alive out of the country. It was genocide. The European Union has put in laws in place that can no longer happen. But sure, they're doing it under the common fishery policy. If we can show that our population can't afford the food and the fish because too many are taking it away from us, then I think there's a legal challenge there. So even without
Yeah.
knowing it, Roisin has just stepped in and given another legal argument as to why we're in Europe. And again, Roisin, just like I said to you, we are common sense people. This doesn't need a lawyer or a barrister to sit down to do this, even though there's lawyers and barristers running, and you haven't heard any of this from them because they don't understand it. They don't understand the complexities of the common fishery policy. They just didn't bother their arses, and that's the truth. So like they're telling you, oh, I'll do this and I'll fight for that. You have to know how Europe works before you can
And I
make
also
change.
believe as well, sorry for interrupting, that
Not at all.
in the general population, omega-3 levels have crashed, and omega-3 is very, very important for brain health, you know, for preventing conditions like Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So, and what's the most, you know, readily available source of omega-3? Fish.
Fish, yeah, and it's all around us. Like we have the Spanish thriving on our fish. That's the truth. You know, they eat more of our fish than the Irish eat of their own fish. And like then again, you're asking me what would I do? I'd extend my reach to the likes of the common fishery policy funding, and I would look for a full evaluation of how that money is being spent. I'm on the operational program, and to be honest with you, I'm not happy there. I'm not happy with what's going on, the way that it's being done, and I'll be challenging that. But I reckon I'd have a bigger voice than being an invitee onto it by the minister. If I was an MEP knocking on the door going, I'll have a look at that, please. Knowing what I'm going to look for, I think there'll be huge changes there as well too. And I would challenge the commission and say, right, this is the legislative framework over the money that goes to the different countries. I want it reviewed. I want to see where the money is going to. Is it by population? Is it by the resource? Is your population getting a greater funding out of our resource because you're bigger than us and there's more of you there? I think we're protected under the treaties for that. So there's a whole myriad of stuff that's there. But Paul, to be honest with you, there's that's only scratching the surface. I'll tell you what I will do when I go to Europe. You won't hear from me in 5 years. You'll hear from me probably in a couple of months, right? And you will hear from me regularly after those months. I have a plan in place that I'm going to document what I do over there. And I'll tell you why. The one thing I learned from the Russians' military exercises, I'll tell you, it was a very simple lesson. Without the people of Ireland, without the people of Europe, without the people of America, I wouldn't have achieved what I achieved. I wouldn't have been able to talk the Russians into making a goodwill gesture and leaving our fishing grounds. If I had gotten no attention, if the Irish people didn't back me, if the people of Europe didn't back me, and I mean Europe now, because people made a lot of noise, and the people of America, we wouldn't have achieved what we achieved. So learning that lesson, I will not be going to Europe without the people of Ireland behind me and knowing what I'm doing. I will be counting on the people that vote for me to keep in contact, to get me to do what they need to be done. And in reverse, they raise their voices with mine. I will be their conduit to the microphone, to raising these issues, even if it has to go into a courtroom. That's what I'll do. I'll do what a politician is meant to do, which is to write the laws, change the laws for our people, as designed by our people. I won't be telling them, like the Climate Action Bill, this is what you have to do because we're telling you this is what has to be done. Absolutely not. Under Article 4 of the Nature Restoration Law that we pointed out, there is provisions there to protect the landholder and the property owners of their rights. We pointed that out to the European Commission and to Ursula von der Leyen, me and the organisations that help to do that. And we have rights. They are not being afforded to us. We are not being treated properly by Europe. I will bring that to the attention of the world if I need to, and I will use my position. Now, the problem is that our national broadcaster won't allow me to speak and say what the other politicians won't say because they don't want to rock the boat. Me, I'll capsize it if I have to.
And Patrick, you know, when you think, because we should have said that at the beginning of the show too. You were the fisherman who negotiated with the Russians when the Russians were military training with missiles. Was it 12 miles outside the Irish waters?
No, it was 180
miles outside.
off our
So
coastline.
tell us
But
about that
in our own.
story.
Like, so people joke and say, yeah, you didn't do anything and the Russians came in and everything. That's not true. And I'm going to put it to you like this. Think of it this way now and use your heads. Do you honestly think an ambassador would invite me and Brendan Byrne in for a chat into his offices? In what reality would that be okay? So there had to be more to the story, didn't there? There had to be a reason why, above all else, no minister was asked in, no government official was asked to go into the room. Something had to be there that we could use with the Russian ambassador to help persuade him to do a goodwill gesture and just move his fleet outside of Irish waters into international waters. So people think, what? It was by pure chance or luck that we ended up inside in the meeting room? Oh, no. Did we play a role at that time? Oh, yes. Of course we did. How often do you hear something like that happening? Ever? Do people really think that this was by fluke? Of course not. Of course not. And there's a movie written about it. And I'm praying the movie will come out. Now, I might have to go in hiding for a while because we'll have broken some of the confidences. But yeah, I'm smiling here because if Brendan Byrne was alongside me, I'd have a bruised arm now because he'd be telling me to shut up. That's the truth. And what we did was orchestrated, was planned, it was put in place, right down to talking about the wallpaper inside in that room.
Well,
so the truth will come out eventually. We're not going to write a book about it. But
you know, who's playing in the film?
Well, you see, this is it now. So Brendan Byrne was asked that question by RTE, right? And he said there was only one man alive could play him properly. And he said that was Colin Farrell, right? So they asked me, and at that time I was a little bit rounder than I am now, and carrying a little few more pounds, even stones, than I am now. And I said John Goodman is the only man that could play me. And that's what we said to RT and the others at the time. No, we had no idea that a young fella would come from America all the way over to interview us and sit down with us and talk about it. And in the last 2 years, he's been chasing it up, and he got funding to develop the script and everything else. So he's got hundreds of thousands just to develop it. Genuinely, this is true. The script is written. Our contracts are signed. And it's moving on from there. So if you know of any good director, he's looking for a good director. And his aspirations are way bigger than mine. If you've seen the list of actors that he's putting up and that he's picked out from all the characters that he's written into the movie, you'd fall off your chair. And it's the top actors in Ireland. And he's not looking for a small budget. He's saying 20 million is what would be needed to make this film. And he wants to make it here in Ireland. So we get that 20 million spent here. And this is a fact. And so when you seen in the interview, a man said to me, oh yeah, we're making a movie. And he goes, what? And I just told him, yeah, it's 800 grand and whatever. These are all true. And people find this, is it really believable? But I'll ask you, was it really believable? Did you see two guys going through the gates of the Russian embassy? Did two guys go in and talk with the Russian ambassador? Did two guys do what nobody else on the planet could do? Was got the Russians to leave and back down and not do military exercises inside in Irish waters. Somebody said to me, and this is true now, right? Somebody said to me, do you know what that program, tracing their roots, and they find, God, your grandfather, he wrote a newspaper article, and oh, did he? He had such an influence. Can you imagine the program they'll run for my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren?
Yeah.
And they go, listen, this is going to take a week.
It goes to show you, Patrick, it goes to show you that it took fishermen from Cork and Donegal, fishermen, ordinary fishermen with common sense to go and negotiate with the Russians and the Russian military to get them to stop using military exercises just outside our Irish waters.
Yeah, and Roisin, you're dead right. And I have said this in many interviews. You will never get peace unless you get to a table.
True.
If you want to annihilate the other person and wipe them out, that's genocide. That if that is your way of ending conflict, by completely destroying your other person, and it is another person, it's another human being or another section of our human race. I thought the Geneva Convention said that was it. So I'm delighted to hear today that there's a possibility of 6 to 8 weeks now that the Americans have put pressure on a couple of politicians in Israel that they'll pull their support for the government there, the regime. I am delighted that there is whispers, and I mean whispers, that maybe talks will start in Ukraine. I hope what I'm hearing is correct. I don't think it's right for men and women to be told on the part of an ideology by our political leaders, it's okay for you to go out and kill somebody else because we say it's the right thing to do, and brainwash them into doing it and giving up their lives to leave children without fathers, children without mothers. You lose your brother, your sister, you know, even a grandparent, or the collateral damage of people getting killed. I never, ever, ever will see the sense in it. I do understand violence. I understand that if somebody harmed one of my family members, I too would be driven for revenge and use physical violence back. I'm not inhuman. So to prevent that, stop the violence in the first place. We are meant to be civilized. So of course I believed when I was going to meet that man in his residence, the ambassador's residence in Dublin, that I, through what I'm saying to you now, might strike a chord and say to him, like he said, and he said it, he said he would, or not he, nor one Russian military man wanted to harm a hair on the head of an Irish fisherman. And I said, perfect. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. Let's move the exercises away from our fishermen. Let's ensure that no accident or anything that goes wrong could make that happen. So we spoke to him and he listened, and we gave him the other reasons, and we told him how much in trouble our industry was. We explained about Brexit. And as I said in my interviews, I was absolutely blown away by that man's knowledge of what was going on in Europe and how badly we were being treated under the fishing. But sure, I suppose it shouldn't have been any great shakes. You don't get to be an ambassador representing a country unless you have a wide variety of knowledge. And I don't think there's a man or a woman in the country doesn't know how badly treated we as a nation have been in regards to our fishing for 50 years. It is not right. And somebody said to me, you got to get an easier way of explaining it to people to make them understand. So this is how I do it. I say, imagine that you've heard that Europe's representatives went to Africa and did a deal with the leaders of the African nations to take 85% of the fish from the African people and just leave them with 15% of their own fish to survive on, and that they would take away 85% of their fish. Do you think that would be right? And they go, oh my God, not at all. Absolutely not. Oh, that's terrible. And then I say, but you think it's okay for the Irish people to give up that amount of fish, for the Irish people to be left with 15%, knowing that our fishermen were going out of business in our coastal communities, and that our people, just like the Africans, didn't have fish to eat anymore, like you said, Roisin, that the right to eat healthy food was being denied to us by the amount of fish that was being taken by other fleets from our waters. This is common sense, like. So I'm asking again, anybody that sees me, think of it. Your politicians made this happen. Your politicians that are knocking on your door, all the political parties, the ones in government and the ones in opposition, did this to your fishermen, did this to the Irish people, make it impossible for the ordinary person to go out and pay so much money for this nutritious food that we need, as you said, Paul, for our good health. This is not acceptable. But if you think anybody watching this is not acceptable, Don't join the politicians. Don't join the government. This is your choice. You can stop this from happening by not voting for the people that have done this. Give them a message. You can vote for them the next time. I don't care. But for once in our lives, give them a message. See change. Do change. Vote for real change. Give them a message in these local LEAs, in the local constituencies. Let them know after the referendums. This is your second warning. You won't get a third. If you don't change, you have a short window. You have 8 months. You can go out to Europe. You can change your tune. You can join Patrick Murphy if I get there to fight for the Irish people, to do what's right. And then when you come back knocking on the doors again, we might give you back your vote. But please God, the people of this country will say for once, no matter who their uncle was, or who their first cousin was, or what politician he was, or who it was knocking on the door, this time, just for once, one vote, one voting vote, one election, send a clear message, not just to the politicians in the political parties, all of the major parties. We're not voting for you this time. We're going to give somebody else a shot in the councils. We're going to see, will you change your tune? You are still in government. You still have time. You have still time to do the right thing. You have still time in Europe to do the right thing before the election comes up again in 5 years' time. But if you don't, you've been given a message first on the referendums. You're given a message now on the local elections in Europe. And you won't be needing to come back in the door the third time if you don't get that message. And the message is clear. We want proper management of our funds. We want proper funding for our health services, nurses, doctors. We want to take away the embargo that prevents qualified nurses and doctors in our country from getting a decent pay and job and conditions. We want housing to be given to people like that. And we need to prioritize the people on the waiting lists. If you're there for 10 years, why should somebody that just jumped off a plane to come into the country get the house before you? Am I the only one saying this?
Yeah.
This isn't racism.
No, it's common sense. It's
common
practical.
sense. But Roisin, it is racism in my view. If my child was looking for a house and he was on a housing list for 5 years or 10 years with his partner, right? And he needed a house because I can't build a house in my land because they won't give me planning permission. So he's no alternative. He can't buy a house because his wages are not good enough to get a mortgage. So the only way then is for the government. And yet you see the government's, yes, building houses. And somebody steps off a plane, goes into a hotel for a few weeks, and he gets the house. And my young fella and his family are left without a house. Who the hell can make sense of that?
Well, here's one for you. My daughter is a doctor. She qualified last year, her second degree. She was a radiographer before that. She is having now to go to Australia. She's applied to go to Australia, leaving the country. She's 2 degrees. She's leaving the country. She can't afford to live as an intern doctor. She's burnt out. She can't even afford to hardly rent a house, never mind buy a house. And she's applying her visas. We said on the previous interview, in her applying for her visas, she, in her radiography degree from UCD, her name had, she's her 3 forenames, as we all do, and a surname. And because UCD in the parchment in her degree only put in two of her forenames, and her second degree in UCD for as a qualified as a doctor in medicine, they put in the 3. The Australian, and they're doing their due process, want to know if she is the same person, because the different names are on the parchments. Human error. She now has to go and pay more money in legal fees and get an affidavit to say that she is who she says she is. And
But
yet
Roisin,
people are coming in the country with no passports.
But Roisin, I think it's way worse. Your daughter is qualified. She went through the process of funding herself and the state funding her and helping her to become qualified so that she could help the Irish people here and be at home with her family, right?
Mm.
And
And
she can't get a
there was
job.
no
But here,
grants, no
she has to
grants
go to
for
Australia.
post-grad
Like
medicine.
like she shouldn't have to change her name or the documentation. Like
No.
she shouldn't be even applying to go to Australia.
They should be
Mm.
keeping the educated doctors and nurses, teachers here. They should be paying the Defence Force members, paying them the money they deserve to be paid.
Jesus Christ, this is like, lads, tisn't interviewing me at all. Tis I should be interviewing you. This is
I don't know about
crazy
that.
stuff.
You
Like,
know,
I hope people watch this now genuinely and share it and watch it. And I know it's long and people will be saying, look, these are talking away mad. But it's like sitting in a sitting room having a conversation. All we need is a glass of wine. So lads, what I'd suggest to you, if anybody's watching this, grab a glass of wine, sit down. It's better than
RTE.
Love Island, or it's better than what are those programs that people, I don't understand why they watch them, or what is it, In the House, what's that bloody other thing that they go,
Big Brother, is it?
Big watch Big
I
Brother.
stopped watching television years ago
Yeah, so
because, and I left the local radio. I left local radio. The censorship, and even the fact that, why is the RTE and all the mainstream media, why do they not have you on every station talking the fact that our fish has been stolen, legally stolen out of our coastal rivers? Our fishermen can no longer afford to go out and fish, the most skilled occupation and the hardest skill of going out into the ocean, the ocean, the mother of weather conditions, Mother Nature. Plus, they're putting danger in their own lives in getting food resources for us citizens of Ireland. Then what you have then is we have the European lawmakers and legislators legally stealing our fish from Irish fishermen, Irish coastal local economies and employment. And you have fishermen going home to their wives crying because they cannot afford to actually earn a living and provide for their families.
Yeah, and we've seen documentaries. The French came over and made that very documentary and told that story in ART. Yeah, not once, twice. We had the Euronews coming over telling that story as well. And
Can you come closer to the mic, Patrick? We can hardly hear you. Yeah.
So we had a French television channel coming over, ARTE, that made that documentary that told it. We had twice. We had a documentary on TG Carr made. We had The Pipe. We had Euronews telling us this in December. And recently we had a young Belgian film company that send their younger reporters all over Europe and the world to cover this, and they covered us, and they came to Castletownbere. And look, it was non-political. They just came over and told the story. They couldn't believe it. So, Roisin, you're dead right. You're absolutely right. It is shocking what's going on. But again, it boils down to this. If the Irish people really are concerned about this, they have an opportunity every now and again. And that opportunity is when they go into the polling booths. And they really have. They have the power is in the Irish people's hands. Every man, woman over the age of 18 that has the right to go into a polling booth has the rights to send a clear message. If they want change, they can change. They can. They genuinely can. But we need all the people to come out. I don't want 40 or 50% of the population to come out, even if I don't get elected. I want to see 80, 90% of the people coming out. I want them to change things, even if it's not me, if it's somebody else. Genuinely, I would prefer myself, because I know I can contribute. I really, really do. So I would prefer myself, but that wouldn't be my overall goal. I want to see change in my country. I don't want to see your daughter feeling she has to leave the country. I don't want to see our military servicemen risking their lives and being badly treated, not given the proper gear or boots or clothes to wear. I don't want to see trolleys. I don't want to see my elderly and old people, on a trolley for 24 hours or longer. I don't want to see children waiting for spinal operations to be waiting in agony. I don't want to see somebody saying, listen, that drug is too expensive and your life isn't worth the cost. And that's what's happened in our country. I don't want to see a messed up housing situation that's in our country. These are all problems that got to be solved.
Yeah.
These are not insurmountable things. It's just do it.
It's amazing.
Just get the right thing.
And it's amazing too as well. In 2016, it cost 68 billion to run the state. And this year it's now costing, in 2023-24, it's costing 110 billion to run the state now. That's a big jump in the cost of running a country. But have you mentioned there, Patrick, and there's lots of areas where people are not seeing improvements in services or outcomes.
So coming back to what Roisin said is, why isn't RTE? I think they know me. I know they know that I'll shake the cage. I'll rattle it. I'll tear down the doors of it. I know I will. I'll have no choice. I won't stand idly by while this stuff is going on. I've never stayed quiet in my life. I'm certainly not going to stay quiet now. So I think they know. They know enough of me that the system that's there, that I'll change it. I'll change it all.
And Patrick, this isn't just going to happen to the fishermen. This is going to happen to the farmers as well.
Absolutely, but not only the farmers. Look, we had a situation, and people's memories, as I said, I raise my eyebrows, I start smiling because the thoughts come into my head, and I'm just going, what I'm about to say is going to be like an episode of Father Ted. Right? We had, not so long ago, houses being knocked and bulldozed to the ground because we couldn't get people to go into them or buy them. Right?
Yeah.
Genuinely, we had ghost estates being knocked to the ground. And now we don't have enough houses in the country, just a short few years later, or enough people to build it. Like, it's like there was a completely different alternative reality. It's like watching a science fiction show.
But no one can afford to buy the houses. No one can afford to get and mortgages are not being approved because the house prices are too high.
Yeah, but Roisin, that's not correct. They're too high because they're inflated by government. It's the same as the fuel. Right. So when the Russians were told, we don't want your cheap fuel anymore, we'll get it ourselves. We'll get it elsewhere. They paid more for the fuel. And so just like what Paul has said there, like, and I have to slow down so that people realize what I'm saying is thought out and reasoned. When the government are charging, or you're being charged €1 for a product, right? And the government get a percentage of that charge. So they charge €1 and they get 23%. Then the government get 23% in every euro. If the price goes up to €2, they no longer get 23. They get 46. So of course, so as you said, Paul, so they were able to manage on the 23. Now they get the 46. And the problem is that they've so much money, they don't know what to do with it. And they just start throwing it here, there, and everywhere. And without looking at where it's needed. Where, if you ask somebody, do you want a new playground and replace the old one that's below there? Or do you want a house for your kid? I'll take the house, thanks. No, we're putting in the playground. Because it'll look better and you'll vote for me.
Yeah.
Should we build the playground for the kids and replace the one that's there, that's functioning, or take an old woman off a trolley in the hospital? Forget about the old woman in the trolley now. Don't be talking about that. There's no votes on that one. We'll build a playground. And you have politicians going around announcing before the I'd like to thank such and such minister because we've put a new playground into the place and everybody is fantastic. And then people coming along going, oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Brilliant. My mother's in a trolley for 72 hours, but it's great you're putting a playground. Like, this is a comedy show. And I'm going, are you really going to fall for that one again? Oh my God, like, Jesus Christ. They'll do the same in 5 years again and you'll vote for them again. Like, and I'm going, is it me? Am I the one that's insane here?
No.
I'm going, like, you told me yesterday you wanted the person off the trolley and you wanted the health, but you're okay with it being spent on the playground. Like, again,
when you think about it, it does sound like an episode of Father Ted.
Like, well, you've got here again. You have the government. You have all the political parties, apart from Aontu. They can't even identify that. They've got such brain fog. They couldn't even remember to identify what a woman was, and they wanted to take woman and mother out of the Constitution.
No, but they said they were doing it for the woman and the mother.
And
We're
on
gonna look at-
International Women's Day, 2 days before Mother's Day.
Yeah, but even so, Roisin, like, again, we're laughing about this. I don't know if people are going to watch this or not, lads, but genuinely, you know, you should be able, if we went and did this on a stage, the place would be packed, right? If we had these conversations sitting down on the stage, people they'd be falling off the seats. Like, so, any comedian that wants to rob this stuff, are you okay with it? Because I think it should
I'm
be.
okay.
I'm okay. You,
There's
Roisin?
my
I'm
seal approval.
okay.
We're okay.
There's
So,
my
you
seal.
know, Pat Short, if you want to take this stuff, comedy gold, absolutely,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
So we're back to the carers now, we're back to the referendum. We need to be told by legislation to look after the carers. We need that legislation to tell us to do the right thing. And you're going, so you admit you need to do the right thing, but you need legislation to do it. Doing it is not enough. Knowing it is not enough. Are you like they were going on the news? Politicians promoting these legislation, telling people that, and you're just going, is this an episode from Father Ted? Like, where's the punch?
And what's even more hilarious, they set up a citizens' assembly to look at that, and they came up with a wording on care, and the government decided, nah, we'll just go with something else. So, like, you spend the time setting up an assembly, you know, time, money, effort, and they come up with a recommendation to go, so that will go with our own.
But that's the same as Leo Varadkar did with the hate speech. So they put out a public consultation, right? And the majority of the public said, nah, we don't want it. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Forget about it. No, we put that out just, you know, test the waters. We're going ahead with it anyway. And you're going, what the fuck did you do a public consultation for? You know, like, honest to God, I always say that there is a man above in the clouds looking down, and he must be pulling on God's skirts, going, please, please, just 1 week. Let me back down there for a week. And that's Dermot Morgan. He must be driving him insane. Like, Jesus. And he's probably looking around at all the rest of them going, there's only one Callum Kicks, and sure they gave him a job inside there now to replace the other fella. Winky wink, noddy nod, right? And you're just going, Jesus Christ, like, can you not see it, folks? Can you not see what's happening? Do you know, so the people that were creating the satire to show people like, hello, and they're being given nice jobs. Like, who took over the late show? Another guy that was on the satire for giving the government an old bit of a kicking now and again. Do you know what we'll do? We give him the job inside the thing, we'll control him. And nobody, that's grand, lads. Yeah, like Father Ted, that's grand. Ted, and you're going, Jesus Christ, like, you know, and as I said, and it's back to this, and I hope people that watch this will take it in the good nature that I'm saying it. Lads, please listen. Think of an episode of Father Ted and go out and just shock the world, right? Don't vote for him. Don't vote for him. Give him a message. Give him the land of their life. Give him the punchline. You're not getting vote. I don't care if you're related to Jimmy. I don't care if my uncle was Johnny, the postman that was the TD's best friend, and he's a great fella, and he's from Fianna Fáil and Fianna Gael. No, this time, just give him a lesson.
And to think about it, it's the common sense. Common sense has been taken away from politics and for running the business. The voice of the people has been silenced. We have been censored.
And I want to say something to you now, right? And this is more serious, right? So people watching this and they say, well, Jesus, why should we vote for the other fella?
Come back to the mic a wee bit, Patrick.
Yeah, so the people that are running now, right? If you look at them, genuinely, they're all decent skins. Like the people outside of the main political parties, they are people that are fed up with the system that's there. But they're not fools. They're not crazy people. They're not the loony party that you see in the UK. These are genuine people coming from the community that more or less, like in Aontu, have left Fianna Fáil, left Sinn Féin, that have political experience. I myself canvassed. I myself have written laws. I've put amendments in. I've given it to the politicians that are there, and they can't deny it. I promise you, we've put in loads of amendments. We've been asked. So we've written laws, right? Genuinely. And if anybody wants to know, give an example, I'll name them. So on the penalty points law that Fianna Fáil objected to, right, when they were in opposition, that Micheál Martin signed in as Taoiseach before he gave the job to the minister, Charlie McConalogue. so he wouldn't get the blame for bringing it in. One of their TDs came to us and said, right, I'll talk for you. So we schooled him exactly on the complexities of the legislation where it was wrong. And he listened and he agreed. And he went into the Dáil and he gave a great orientation. One of the best I've seen inside the Dáil, to be honest with you. Genuinely understood it. And he got it from us. And then what did he do? By the way, Minister, I'm not going to lose the whip. So I'm going to vote in the legislation that I just spent the last 15 minutes arguing against. Oh, that's if somebody says, so I want to come back to the point. He got that information from us. People outside there in the community, don't let RTE or anybody else tell you they're not capable. Of course they are. It wouldn't be put forward. They don't just walk up. I didn't walk up to Aontu and said, hey lads, I feel like going to Europe. I went through a selection process. I had to show my wares to a political party, to Peadar Tobin, 30 years experience, he keeps reminding me in politics. So I don't think he's any fool. So he had to vet me. He had to see what my qualifications were and whether I was up for the job, because he was putting his name behind mine. He was going to vouch for me. And the same goes for a lot of people that are running like me in Aontu. They had to go through a process. He didn't just walk down the street and say, listen, how are you doing? I like the look of you. Will you run for Aontu? It doesn't work that way. So the people that are running for Aontu, the party that I'm a part of, right, are intelligent people. They're reluctant politicians. They're trying to do things in their own communities. And if you listen to the interviews, they'll tell you they're nurses, doctors, teachers, business people, people with history, accountants. They're from other political parties. They are a safe pair of hands. So you're not voting out somebody that you go, oh God, is it going to be worse? I'm asking you to think about it. Is it good the way it's going? Do you want it to continue the way it's going? Do you want to put in different management? Of course you have to. And people say, sure, of course you would say that. Yeah, of course I would. I'm running myself. I don't agree with the management that's there.
No.
So why would I say they're grand when I know they're not grand? When they won't listen. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm asking people to listen and to look and ask themselves a simple question. Do you like the way we're going? The only way you're going to change it is change the people driving the bus.
Yeah.
Change the driver.
Yeah.
That's up to you. And again, we have to hit this message home. You have this opportunity now for our local councils and for Europe. And people were, sure, Europe, what's Europe? Europe makes 70% of the laws.
Yeah.
You haven't heard from your MEPs for 5 years, the ones that are there, that are asking to go back for another 5 years, and they will probably again. We have one man that said, I'm 15 years in Brussels. 15 years in Brussels. And I asked people, do you know your MEPs in Ireland South? And after 15 years, they couldn't name them.
Wow.
Now that is an indictment
Patrick.
of replacement, if I ever heard it.
Patrick, we've been talking to an awful lot of politicians, and we spoke to one just before we came on with you now, a local Fine Gael County Councillor. And we asked him, and you've done some amazing videos and they're up on Twitter. And he said, and I was shocked because he's Fine Gael County Councillor. So we asked him what was coming up the doors, and he said, immigration. Your videos that you have on Twitter, and we'll put them on, we'll put links on this and the links to the movies and everything else you mentioned in the box below. Immigration, you actually did some very thought-provoking videos on Twitter about the immigration.
Yeah, and look, again, don't get me wrong, I'm not against immigration, I'm the opposite. I am fighting for an atypical worker scheme to bring migrants from outside of Europe into our country, because we can't get fishermen in Europe. We've tried, we've asked.
Imagine the Irish men, and we're an island.
Not Europe. Europe, we've looked to Europe. We've looked for the people coming in. Will they go fishing? Like, so we're looking for fishermen outside with qualifications to come in here, and they're coming in because, look, genuinely, it's economy, right? In their own country, they're on $5-10 a day, right? Okay, here they'll probably be on 100, if 150 euros a day, right? And that's the truth of it. So they'd be rich people in their own countries, but a fisherman here on 100, 150 a day won't survive. That's the reality. right? So that's why these people are willing to come in, so people to explain it. So I'm for immigration. We have to bring people in to our economy. But what I will say is that the politicians have mixed up immigration and refugees. It's that simple. And here's, I'd say you're referring to this, Roisin. So somebody said to Dora, look, you're talking, give us an example. Give me a way that I can understand it. And I said, perfect. I'm on your doorstep now, I'm canvassing. And he said, that's right. So imagine I knock on your door and I didn't introduce myself, right? And I wanted to come into the house. And you said, oh, who are you? And I'd say, I'm such and such. And you said, right, prove it. Show me your ID. And I said, nah, not showing you the ID. Would you let me into the house? I'd ask him. He said, no way, why would I let you into my house? Don't be stupid. That's what we're doing into our country. My country is my house. It's just a bit bigger. It's my country. My children are away from me. One girl is in college. The other girl goes to school. She's in the local towns. My lads are out to work. They're out of the house. I'm not minding them 24/7. Do I think this is okay? Of course not. This is not okay. So I'm asking everybody else, am I wrong to say that somebody comes into my country with no ID, whether he had one getting on the plane or not, that's going to come in, and we should say, yeah, come in? Absolutely not.
No.
I think that's another form
No
of
vetting, no vetting.
No
But my
vetting.
daughter going to Australia has to have, but
Yeah.
I mean, a name
David to prove who she is, right?
Yeah.
So, but just boil it down to what I'm saying. You see, people don't understand. They disassociate themselves with somebody coming from the north or coming off a plane and coming from the boat, and they say, sure, that's not going to affect me. So put it in a way that it'll affect them. Make them realize that this is somebody coming to your door that wants to come in past your door into your house in beyond your security. And they won't tell you who they are or show you who they are, even though coming up the driveway, they had the information and they threw it away. They hid it. Like, what country in the world would allow that if they had no open borders? This is why I say when I was on interviews, yes, Ireland has open borders. What else would you call it? That's an open border. Somebody rocks up to your border and you don't stop them from coming in, even if they've no ID. And the worst bit is that even when one of those people are told to leave the country, it's a voluntary action. So you know where the hell they are, and there's no traceability. They could be anywhere. So just think of it this way. And this, I'm not saying this is happening, but it's in my head. So this person has no way of supporting themselves. And they don't leave the country. And they can't get a job, but they need to survive. They need money. So they can't get it legally. What's their next option? What are you telling those people to do in your country when you don't support them? And then you have a Taoiseach of a country saying, well, yeah, they're around the place, but, you know, we do say that they can't stay in. And this is a fact, like this, you'll find the clip yourselves, where Leo Varadkar, as Taoiseach, was asked, you know, about the deportation. He said, well, you see, on humanitarian grounds, those people could stay. That's an open border. What else is it? We have open border policy in our country, supported by all the parties, bar Aontu. We're the only ones that said that if somebody is illegal and rocks up to our door illegal and declares they're illegal, you send them out. So I'll put it to you this way. People say, but should the Irish go to America? There is no way you go off a plane in America and go, I've no visa, no visiting visa, no nothing. I've no identification. Thanks, lads. Oh, okay. We'll put you up in a hotel, man, for a couple of nights. Yeah, and we'll evaluate your situation. And they knock on the door. Hey, man, are you in there? Yeah. You wouldn't mind? We don't want you in the country anymore. Will you leave, please?
I mean, you couldn't make it up. And Aontu, just before we finish up, Aontu were the only political party to actually highlight and put the floodlights on child trafficking in the Dáil.
There you go with your open borders. Like, it's like, who's doing this? Is it Irish people? Genuinely, I'm asking that question. Like, Is it Irish people are trafficking kids into the country from other countries? Is it Irish people? How are they getting them in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's bringing them in? Is it Irish people? So does an Irish person fly out of the country, grab a child, kidnap it, bring it into the country? Genuinely, is it?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Let's be real here. Could they? Who's doing it? This is not stuff like.
It's a $150 billion industry worldwide. And Ireland was on tier 2 of the American child trafficking watch list, the same as Romania and Saudi Arabia. And like the fishing crisis and the fishing issue, it's never been mentioned on RTE.
Never.
I mean, never.
Never.
It's never, and yet we're on tier 2
Yeah.
of the Irish of the world's trafficking list.
I can promise you, I promise you that if I get elected, none of this shit will go unspoken about. And it is, and I don't care if people, oh, look at the bad language you used. If you don't like my bad language, you know what, don't bother voting for me. But if you think that I'm talking sense here, then the only thing you can do is vote for me. Let's not look at the negatives. I've seen so many comments up online about this and that, people trying to pick holes and trying, oh, they're supporters of the other political party. I know when people put up a false name and don't put up their own name, I know what's coming. Hiding behind a false name. Look, and even when they make stupid answers, sometimes I answer them back just for the fun, just to show online the idiocy of the people that are asking me questions, like, because you're just going, listen, if you're not smart enough to get what I'm saying to you, everybody else will. And this is it. And it's one of the ways that alleviates the pressures inside my head going, are we? The only thing, lads, and I mean this, that restored my faith in democracy in my country, genuinely, was the last referendums. I genuinely didn't think we'd get the results. I was saying,
I did.
I didn't think they'd let it happen. That'll tell you now, Roisin, of how far down my trust and my faith in our own.
I trusted the people. I trusted the Irish people.
Mine is
not the political party.
Yes, I'm being very candid here now, right? I didn't believe that it would be allowed to have happened.
Yes.
I reckon that I had so little faith in our democracy in this country. I was Donald Trump. I actually believed this is rigged. I couldn't believe, because everybody I spoke to, not one person, one person did. One person did. He said he was voting with the government. And I didn't know, was he winding me up or not? And I just said it. But I met him afterwards and I said, it's great to be in the minority groups, isn't it?
I canvassed for the no.
Yeah. Oh, I did too. I know. I
canvassed. And it was, you know, and it was, like when you had politicians telling people that they had to take, and this is the opposition parties, all of them apart from Aontu, but it's got to a stage where politicians were telling the Irish people what to do. They had forgotten that their role and their job and function was to represent the people of Ireland.
Yeah.
And the people in the referendums went out and voted, and the arrogance of the government, the arrogance of the NGOs, the politicians, and the other opposition parties, apart from Aontu, were the only ones that listened to the people.
Yeah, and we seen for the first time how the system operated, genuinely. And it operated by bribery. It operated by intimidation. It operated by bullying. It operated, so how government put out a public statement, anybody that doesn't vote for this, we'll have to look at the reasons why you didn't and question your funding. Now, that was blackmail.
That was blackmail.
We had the Women's Council of Ireland, who were getting funded majorly, and the Women's Council of Ireland voting to put women out of the Constitution, telling the women this was the right thing to do. We had organisations, in fairness to the Carers organisation, I think they're the only ones that said, no, we're not doing this. So, like, we had politicians telling lies, hiding documents, not giving the truth to the electorate, and still holding their positions. We have a government that are so untrustworthy that even when they catch out a politician doing it, there's no consequences, no accountability. Like, and then these people are knocking on the doors, and maybe not the same individual people, but the same policies. the same whip system that's there for these politicians to tell them, listen, you have to go this way. And I don't know who's driving this. Maybe it's 5 or 6 inside the party. I don't know that, but I do know it's wrong. I do know, Roisin, again, how my decision to join Aontu was strengthened. And I'll tell you why. We were asked individually in every common to give our opinion to the common first, and then the commons into the central to see how we'd react to this. And we brought everybody's opinion to the table. And look, some people were saying, yeah, I need to be convinced of this. The government are saying this. Why are they saying it? Why are we going against this? Why would we be the only ones on the way out? This could end us as a party.
Yeah.
You know, we could be given even more labels than the ones we're given, right? And I'm going, lads, wait a minute now. Aontu stood up for what was right, knowing they were going to be punished for it, knowing they were going to be ridiculed for it, knowing that, you know, this would get people more or less spitting on you in the street, genuinely. And I'm going, well, I joined this political party because I believe, very simply, like, and I'm laughing at this, I'm pro-life. And I can't understand how anybody can walk up to another person and go, hey, you vote for me, I'm anti-life. Because if I'm not pro-life, I'm anti-life. How can that message be sold? How can the political party that stands for unborn babies be the bad guy? And I'm going to tell you how. And I'm going to tell the people watching this how. Because I'm going to tell you a little experiment that I did at one of our meetings. So I'm going to expand a small bit on our conversation, if you don't mind. I asked an 8-year-old, well, I asked her mother first, because I asked the questions genuinely because of my training and everything else. I just rock up to an 8-year-old. I asked the mother and actually the grandmother first, could I do something with the little girl in here? And if she agrees to it. And they all said yes, including the child. I said, and I went down on my knees, because you don't talk down to them. And I went down on my knees and I looked at her and I said, listen, I just want to ask you a few questions. And I don't, if you're scared or you don't want to answer the questions, there's no problem. And I said, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever you think, I promise you. And she said, okay. And I said, can you imagine things in your mind? Can you see them? And she says, oh, yeah, of course I can. I said, can you picture a cow? And she says, yeah. Can you picture it in a field with all the bushes around it and the flowers in the field? And she says, I can. You can see that? And she says, I can see it. I said, can you see a car? Yes. And in the morning when Mammy starts the car and you're going to school, you see the smoke coming out of the exhaust. I said, can you see that? And she said, I can. Do you ever look up into the sky and you see the plane and like the clouds coming out the back of it? And she said, yes. I said, they're the exhaust fumes. She said, yes, I can see that. And did you ever see a big chimney with loads of smoke coming out into the atmosphere like this? Right? And she said, yes. I said, can you picture all of them together now? Or the 4 of them? And she said, I can. I said, no. Can you tell me which one of them is harming our planet and our environment? What did she say? Which one of them did she pick? Genuinely, no. No right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong answer. And I know you're saying, is this a trick question? It's not.
None of them.
That child.
The
Huh?
one from the sky.
The cow.
What?
Yeah. The cow.
Because she's been told in school.
And the grandmother said, no, it's not the cow. I said, no.
Because she's been
I
told
said, no,
that
there's
in
no right
school.
there's no right or wrong answer, I said. I just want to know.
The poor Kai.
But this 8-year-old has been told in her first 8 years of life what is damaging our planet.
Life.
From what she's been taught in school and what she's been told and what she's seeing in the media, she picked out of those 4 items the cow. So I'm telling you, there's no right or wrong answer because it can't be. So the child was right because that's what she's being taught. No.
Where has
That's
humanity
the answer.
in society
No, here,
gone?
there's a big difference to what I'm going to say next, right? So the answer, there was no right or wrong answer because that's what she's been taught. But what was wrong was what she was taught.
Mm.
And that's what's happening now. And as a person who has learned to be an educator, who has been professionally vetted and sanctioned to be an educator. I think that's where we're going wrong as a society. That the people that are in our educational system, the people in our media that's peddling this nonsense to our young people, are poisoning the minds of our young people. And I'll extend that to wokeism.
Yeah.
And I asked my own girls, and they were same as that child, believes that it's okay for a man to put on a wig, walk down the street with a dress, and go, "My name's Mary," right? And walk into a ladies' toilet. And that's how I said it to him. I said, listen, no problem with him calling himself Mary, no problem whatsoever. And if he wants to be called Mary, I'll call him Mary all day long, right? No bother. But when that man comes up to me and says, I'm a woman, and you have to say I'm a woman, I say, no, I don't. If you want to call yourself a woman, by all means, Mary, you're a woman in your own head. In my head, you'll always be a man. You can't force me. I can't force you. But you're certainly not. Our society ain't going to force me. And no way would that man go into a room where my daughters are getting undressed in a swimming pool or go to a toilet. That's where I draw the line. Mary, you won't be going in there if I have anything to do with it. So this is the wokeism. But the children are being told, yeah, this is okay. So just like the cow, the problem isn't with the child. The problem is who's giving the message. And this is common sense. And look, people can say, oh, you're incorrect in saying this. I don't care. That's your opinion. I think you're incorrect in teaching this. So we have a difference of opinion. What do I do about it? I'll keep expressing my opinion. And if I can bring common sense to it, and hopefully other people will listen and say, yeah, I think he's talking common sense. So Mary, your grand as Mary with your wig on and you're walking down the street, no problem. I have no problem with that. Mary, dress any way you want to. Call yourself any name you want to. You're entitled to that. Genuinely, I believe that. That person is entitled to do that, provided they don't force that ideology on somebody else. Just like other things, and I maybe start getting controversial now, so maybe I should move off topic. But no, I mean this. So, like, anybody wants to talk and discuss things with me, I'm an open book. And if they can persuade me that I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to put up my hand. So if somebody can come in and explain to me where my ideology, my thinking is wrong on that, fine, tell me, show me. But like, I smile at this stuff. And so reality is reality for me. It's that simple. And just because somebody tells me a fairy tale or that Mother Godmother is outside the window, unless I look out and see her flying across with a pair of wings, she ain't there.
What to say? A camel is a camel, it's not a horse.
Yeah.
Just because the camel calls himself a horse, in his head he might be a horse. Let's agree on that one. But you and I both know he's not a horse. You know?
Well, I was a woman. I'm definitely telling you, he's not a woman.
Patrick, it was a pleasure chatting with you.
Oh,
I wish you every success.
I tell you, it brings me back into a bit of normality and reality in my life to speak like-minded people, and I love getting the opportunity to do this because it's like therapeutic now. You know, these thoughts are in your head, and at least now you can express them. And God knows, everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? And they can I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. But if they want to argue with me, that's a different story. And if you can persuade me, grand job. But if you can't, you have to accept what I'm saying. So don't start the argument unless you're like me. If you lose, you have to accept what I'm saying. If you win, I'll be the first to put up my hand. But I would, and that's why I put out my number and my email. And I have no problem talking to people and whatever else. And I do it in my community. I'll stop on the side of the street. As long as people don't abuse me, I won't abuse you. Let's be respectful. But I am asking people to think this time. I really do. I've heard for the last 4 or 5 years people complaining about our political system. I was told I was the hurler in the ditch because I'd be saying the same thing as I'm saying now. I put myself forward. I think I have something to offer. But this time I will reiterate this. Don't say you don't have an opportunity to change things. This time you do. This time there's more like-minded people like you outside there. And if you think my vote won't count, absolutely this time it will, because there's a lot of people outside there that are not happy, and they can send a very clear message without doing any harm. There'll be no harm done here. The people, I believe, that are running, I've looked at the other candidates and everything else. We have plenty capable people running for this time, and they don't have to be associated. But I do know, I know the people better inside Aontu. I really do. I've met them. I've spoken to them. We've had conversations like this, and they're the salt of the earth. They're genuinely nice people. There's no room for people that are not of the same frame of mind. We have policies. We follow them. We are given leeway to discuss, and like we did with referendums, and we are a party, so we have to have some structure, right? But I can guarantee you we are better than independents because we are a working group. We are definitely better than the parties because we're not told what to say, how to react, and what to do. We have our own opinions, and they're respected in our party, 100%. So I think Aontu is the best of both worlds. And again, I'll say this, and I'm going to finish on this, and I know this is going to be controversial, but I want to put a thought in people's minds, if that's okay, and I'll come closer to the mic. So again, like the referendums, I was heartened, really heartened, when Joe Duffy fought so hard with the listenership to get them to acknowledge that during the Monaghan bombings, that it was accepted that the poor woman that was killed, that was carrying a baby, wasn't the only victim, that that baby got recognition as well too, that that baby died, and it was there. It wasn't a bunch of cells. It was a living being that had to be recognized. And I was absolutely blown away when he followed that up with the Stardust tragedy, when another girl unfortunately died and lost her life, was also told afterwards that she was carrying a baby, and that to give solace to the family, those families, that that baby was also recognized as another victim. So I want people to understand where I'm coming from with this. That means a baby inside in a woman is real. It deserves to be acknowledged, and it definitely deserves somebody to be able to speak out for it. And that's why I joined Aontu. I wanted, for what I heard was wrong, and I'll always say it's wrong. And I'm delighted that on these two cases that the Irish people accepted, regardless of what the other things, now we won't go into that. But the most important thing for me is that when you're carrying a life, that life isn't deemed a bunch of cells just because it has to come out and breathe air. That inside the baby, that is a baby, and that we should recognize that. And there's people that contacted me that had stillborns, and they weren't. And I put an article out just in case people think, he's only saying this. No, I'm not. I believe in it. So I put out an article when a woman reached out to me through our party to say that her baby didn't meet the required number of weeks to be legally recognised as a baby. To her, that baby was a baby and will always be her baby. And she took that baby home with her husband and buried that baby. And they got a coffin for that baby. And it was a baby, even though it was less than the required number of weeks or days that our government would recognise it. I'm going to keep fighting for that. So look, when people talk to me, I'm really easy to read, lads. I try and do the right thing. I'm no angel. I have mistakes made, and I guarantee there'll be plenty probably pointing them out as well too. So I'm not infallible, and I have those thoughts in my head, you know. I will carry them forever. But I try and live a good life, and I do try and look after my fellow man and woman around me and children. And I think I have something to offer in Europe. And I'm hoping people that see me and keep looking at the stuff I'm putting out, keep looking at me, you get to know me better. You can look at the stuff, but I really do hope that people will give me a shot in Europe. I'd be really disappointed if I didn't get it, because if we lose more boats and I see the pain and suffering on more fishermen's faces, their children and their wives, I don't think I'd be able to take too much more of it, to be honest with you. I'm being honest. It's hard. It's not easy. So I'm really hoping that people will give me a shot at this for 5 years. And look, if I can't, if people don't want me there in 5 years' time, let me know. You know, if I can't do something, no problem. But I'd love for people to give us a shot. First time in 50 years, give a fisherman a shot to look after that part of our country. I think 1 in 14 isn't a lot to ask for. So that's how I'll end the message. So lads, thanks very much again for this.
Thank
Throw
you,
up as
Patrick.
many
We really
links as
appreciate
you
the
want.
time.
And
Patrick Murphy, thank you so much indeed. You're a European candidate to take the time out of your canvassing to come on and talk to Paul and I on the Irish Political Roundup.
pleasure as always, lads, and we'll do it again, I
Patrick,
promise.
appreciate the
Many,
time.
many more times.